Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Worth the Hype, right? I hope you guys like the new intro. It's been 2 episodes since we've launched this, and we are constantly making changes as well. As you can see from Woody's camera, right? There is a whole production upgrade. I've yet to complete mine, so it's still a work in progress. So just bear with us from that, right? So as you can see from the title, we're talking about the Grand Seiko UFA, right? The one that was released in Watches and Wonders, and also the recent one with the limited edition variant that just released, right? So we have gotten this comment from YouTube that asks us to give our thoughts and opinion about this particular watch, right? And as we mentioned, we listen. We are hearing you guys. We have seen several comments about in terms of what is scoring so weird and so on. We have taken note about that as well. So we are doing a little bit of a tweak and sort of an enhancement to how we visualize the scoring as well. And you will see that in this particular episode. And before we kick that off, if you have any other further comments, critiques as well, just plot it in. As mentioned, we are watching, we are listening, and we are taking it into consideration as well. And we are getting better episode by episode. So bear with us, right? So for the UFA, for those who do not know, it is a incredible watch that Grand Seiko has launched April this year with a enhanced spring drive movement. UFA stands for ultra fine accuracy, and this watch runs up to plus minus 20 seconds a year, right? That is insane, right? That is incredibly insane. So, spec sheets are available if you are watching it on YouTube. It has a case size of 37mm, of a lug to lug of 44.3, right? Retail of 10.9, and for the limited edition of 11.1 US dollar, right? And the limited edition is a limited edition out of 1300, and it is a special purple variant, which in my opinion looks very nice, but we'll talk more about that in our particular scoring, right? So before we go on, anything you want to add in, Woody?
Well, this was a watch when it first came out. We've got a mutual friend that purchased it, and we'll shout out to him later. But ultimately, it was very tempting, right? And it's one of those watches where it encapsulates everything that enthusiasts think about when it comes to Grand Seiko. So I think that's something unique. But I have different views when this more recent edition dropped, but we'll go into it in further detail. So let's get on with it first then, James.
Right. I think before that, I think another thing I want to talk about as well, for those who are keeping an eye on this particular watch, and for those who have pre-ordered it right after Watches and Wonders, you would notice there's actually a hiccup or slash QC in the production, right? So the release date was delayed, I think for about a month or two, and apparently due to the misaligned date window. So the date showed up not centered when you're viewing the watch, right? It's more on the upward side, right? So you would see it aligning upwards and not centered aligned, which to me comes off as a very big surprise. Knowing the reputation of Grand Seiko, they're usually the one that does not miss things like this, right? They are the one that looks after all these nitty-gritty details, and which is very surprising coming from them. And the fact that this was shown in several press release kits as well. However, the particular announcement to delay the particular release was only done right at the tail end as they approached the release date. So what are your thoughts about that, Woody?
I think it was really odd. It felt rushed. It's one of those things that if you know manufacturing and launch of product, right, it almost felt like Grand Seiko really, really wanted to get it out during Watches and Wonders, and it somehow slipped past everybody that there was this small error. And I also found it very odd that it took them a while to realize it was hitting the production watches. So that's a bit of a miss. But I guess it's one of those things that kudos to them. They pulled it before it actually reached the consumer, right? And then they fixed it. Because I can think of many brands who would just go like, oh, it's a feature, but it isn't. So, but it's still surprising. I mean, for the price of watch that they're asking for, you kind of hope they don't make errors like this, but good on them for fixing it up before it reached the consumer.
Fair enough. All right. Without further ado, let's get straight into it, right? So you know the drill. As you can see, right now there is a progress bar above as well. And how we're scoring this is essentially with a maximum 10 of scores. And for each criteria, we either give it a full mark or a sort of neutral / half mark, or we do not agree with it, so it's a 0 mark over there, right? So is it worth it at retail? So as you mentioned as well, it's about 10 or 11,000 US dollars, depending which variant you're going for. It is a lot of money. A lot of money that you're asking for people to invest in, especially knowing or looking at the trend of all past Grand Seiko watches as well. Typically, upon leaving the store, you would lose quite a big chunk of those cash, right? Whether should they be valued higher in the secondary market or not, that's besides the point. It is what it is. That's what the market is. With this price, you would really lose a lot of money, right? So I'm just purely talking about a value retention point of view. So if you are worried about that, you're looking to buy this watch, it says, oh, it's a very well reputable watch brand, incredible movement, so it should hold value. The answer is going to be a no, unfortunately. It's very much catered to satisfy key watch enthusiasts that really geeks out on the movement and so on. And if you want it fast, and if you want it like part of the first few that will own it, or you really want that limited edition and you must have it, it's probably going to be a 0 mark for me over here. All right, over to you, Woody.
So when this watch first dropped, I had sticker shock. The first UFA, the SLGB003, it ticked all the enthusiast boxes. But when I looked at the price, I was like, wow, gone are the days where we all used to say that Grand Seiko is like great value, whatnot, right? Now it's operating where, in a way, we created this monster, right? As enthusiasts, because we kept saying this underrated for what it is. It's now operating kind of where it should be. But because of that, the sticker shock is really there. I think the other problem that it has is, and this is also took me by surprise as I was researching for our episode, you can already find the SLGB003, the titanium model, going at the 10-15% reduction in price on Chrono 24 already, right? So there are already people dropping it in the same way that Grand Seiko genuinely tends to have a value loss upon retail to secondary. It's already hitting this model as a 20-25-year model, right? Which is a flagship watch. So you can see that that tends to be the trend. Now, then comes the new limited edition Violet Dawn watch that they called it, right? Now, here's my problem with it. They're asking for a $200 premium for a limited edition. I understand that play. A lot of brands do that for limited editions. But they actually removed features from this one, because you go from arguably the more premium material, harder to work with material called titanium. Yes, they used ever brilliant steel for it, so it's a shinier, higher polish, a lot more. It's in the name. It's an ever brilliant type of steel that they self-branded, right? But they then lose the micro adjust on the watch, which was part of the selling proposition on the titanium model. And I think that doesn't make sense, because now you're just paying for color and exclusivity, and you lose something as a result. I mean, if all else was the same, I think it would have been a better proposition. But in its current form, it just felt weird. I don't know what they were thinking. So it's a 0 for me. It's a lot more nuance to it as well. I'm just wondering what you think, James, because ultimately it's one of those there you think that you might think it's a tooling thing, but titanium is actually a harder material to work with than steel. And so it feels very odd in my view. What are your thoughts?
Yep, exactly. I think if it was the flip, let's just say if the original one was in steel and do not have a micro adjustment, and then you have the limited edition with titanium and you do not have the micro adjustment, I think that's probably going to be more understandable, because it's okay. It's going to be hard to work with, so therefore we're going with we're giving you something better than steel, but you're losing something else. So there is sort of like an even trade-off, right? You get a better material, but you lose the micro adjustment. Right now, you have double whammy situation. You lose the material and you lose the feature. So it's a little bit baffling on why they decide to do that. I do not understand as well, right? So either one, if I were just put in my business head things like, okay, this is a limited edition, 1,300 units. It's going to get sold out anyways. So let's just maximize our profit margins with going through steel and not investing too much. We're now going to make a special tooling machine I'm not even sure if this makes sense, but I'm not going to create a special machinery to get the micro adjustment into steel. Maybe, I don't know. Or like if somehow they have when they are experimenting with the initial UFA, choosing between steel and titanium, maybe they have prepared some steel bracelets available, and this is the one way for them to clear the steel bracelet stocks. Maybe, I don't know. But to me, I can't really find a logical reason why they would do so. That really helps in terms of their own Grand Seiko image. Yeah. What do you think, Woody? Any thoughts about this?
No, I fully agree with you. I just didn't make sense with me. This particular decision that they made felt like I'm giving you some and taking back some. So I don't know, perhaps I'm just hypothesizing that I would have preferred if they had done like a limited edition model with the full set, or even if it's all titanium, right? And just create that. I almost wonder, and this is just a speculative thought, I'm wondering if perhaps even the market and the consumer, right? Like you and I have no issue with titanium, but I know a lot of enthusiasts out there do. So I'm just wondering if it's maybe they're sensing feedback from their customers that actually, I know I prefer it in a heavier material like steel. So they went like, I'm not ready for it yet, but I'm going to give you something because we were on course to release something. We've got the tooling to make this anyway. So I'll release this first, right? Maybe that was what it was, because maybe we are not as in tune to that. That's my only other thought I can think of.
To me, what I would personally have done it if it's not ready and if it's rushed in that particular scenario that you have created, I would have personally released it in a leather strap. That's what I would do. And then several months later and say that, hey, I know I've listened to you. For the owners of this limited edition piece, we now also have a Ever Brilliant steel bracelet that you can top up and add on to your watch and so on. Then the third phase, they will release a non-limited edition Ever Brilliant steel. That's how I would play my cards if I were Grand Seiko. Yeah,
it's a great point actually. I like that idea.
Yeah. Oh well. Unfortunately, we're not in Grand Seiko, but moving on, right? Is it worth it on the secondary market, right? So I think back to the same point I've mentioned, right? In retail, it's really expensive and you lose a lot of money. But I would also turn it around and give another perspective and says that should it actually be worth and should people actually be paying 10, 11,000 for this watch in a ideal world, right? I would say yes, because innovations are not cheap, right? The amount of R&D that goes through creating a new movement and so on, arguably, if you want something, we should definitely be paying Grand Seiko for investing all this time and effort creating all this new innovation, right? Otherwise, we will potentially risk a scenario that, oh, okay, people only care about branding status and value retention. So why am I investing so much in the R&D in improving the horological of watches? It brings me no investment if people are not willing to pay for this. So there is actually a sort of like a chicken and egg situation over here, right? But unfortunately, we're living in this world and we have to make choices on what the market demands and what the market price is. And in this specific scenario, in this world that we live in, the secondary market just yields a better price point that you can get to, right? And I've mentioned this time and time again. Watches like Grand Seiko is probably going to be owned by key watch enthusiasts, which will very much keep their watch in the best condition possible, right? And you get it for a cheaper price, and you do not have to wait. I think there's a plus, plus, plus. So I really think that secondary market is the way to go, right? Even though it is still at a very high price in 8,000 and so on, you could probably get other watches that holds better value. Even at 8,000 for this UFA, you might even lose money and so on. But there's no other watch like this. If you really want something that it's, I would say to a certain extent as well, groundbreaking in innovations or horological, this is the thing that you should be supporting, right? We should continue to purchase watches like this that has continued to invest in advancing the next level of horology, right? And therefore, for me, I will give it a full one over here. And over to you, Woody.
So I think it's an interesting dynamic. I'm very surprised to see that a very new watch, because keeping in mind there was that delay in launch as well, right? So effectively, the watch owners probably only have had it for 1 or 2 months. So to see it already trading on the second market for cheaper means there's value to be found. So if you're going to buy it, 1-2 month old watch can already get it for a lower price. I say it's good value. I think the challenge I have about, instead of giving full marks, I gave only a half mark for this, only because I have seen in the past, and as an owner of the White Bird string drive, right, it's the Lexua limited edition that retains the value better, and therefore even till today, the premium is there for that limited edition versus the regular production. So I'm not sure if that's going to be the trend now for this particular polarizing violet or purple watch, right? Limited edition watch. And I guess blending the two together is a half and half. I would say if you're in the market to find the original UFA, I'd say the secondary market is a great value to go into, right? And especially if you don't yet have a dealer relationship that gives you the discount or whatnot, because that may actually end up being about the same. But for the limited edition one, I don't know yet. So the verdict is still out. If you can get it for lower, I would say wait. If you're FOMO, then it's a bit tougher because I don't think it's worth it at retail to pay for something that you have lost a bit of the feature. I feel the loss of the micro adjust is what pains me the most. It's one of the things that Grand Seiko sold so hard during Watches and Wonders, and then your next model that you call a limited edition, you don't have it, just doesn't work for me. So half a mark there. Back to you, James.
Okay, fair point. Moving on to the very next criteria, which is aesthetic, right? So I'm going to split in terms of my thoughts and opinion for these two particular watches, right? Actually, there's a third one, which is the platinum variant, but we can also factor that in too. So on the original UFA, which is a white/silverish dial, my immediate thought is that it's a little bit too plain, right? It's a little bit too safe. But one could also argue that it looks very clean, right? So that's very much a preference thing. So for my personal preference, I think that's a little bit too clean for me. Even the light blue one as well, it's also sort of look really muted, right? It doesn't really shout. However, with this new purple one, I think they've done a really, really great job just on the dial and the dial color itself, right? Because at least right now, I'm very much a fan of watches that it's boring on the first glance, but when you look at it a little bit deeper and when the lights dance and you say, oh wait, the purple shines, it's not black, it's purple. And then, whoa, okay. And certain lighting, then the pattern starts coming out. But from far, you see that it's just a flat black dial or dark color dial. You aren't able to see anything. So I like that. Hey, I'm here when you shine it at the right lighting and so on. And that is what the purple dial would be able to give you. And if you're a fan of that, the purple dial, it's really, really good, at least for images, right? So a point note as well, I have not seen the purple dial in person yet, as it's just announced or / release. But yeah, at least purely judging from images, that is absolutely beautiful. And the rest just seems a little bit too boring for what I'm looking for. So with that, I'll give it a sort of a half mark over here, 0.5. Yeah, over to you, Woody.
I'm actually very similar, Cam, as you are. I actually really considered the 003, the original one. But, there's something a little bit simple. And I come at that also being a Spring Drive White Birch owner, right? It's very same. And there's a colloquial term that you have, right? It doesn't feel like there's a wow factor to the dial. Now, when this limited edition dropped, I was like, now we have something that really looks good, right? And of course, unfortunately, is the way I look at it, this almost feels like I wanted to give something in between, similar to what you did. So I also scored it a half a grade for what I would prefer if they had come in a bit bolder with something like this. As I think that this is the thing that really bothers me. And it's very evident in this video, right? It's so close to being ideal. And I would have preferred everything the same as the 003. Give me the purple dial. I might even stomach the retail. But right now, in its current form, I cannot. It's lovely purple dial, something very different. And in Grand Seiko fashion, the dial's going to be done well. So it's never simple, right? It's always going to be a dance of light, a bit of different tone when you're under different lighting. So you know that's a proven entity already. And I'm pretty sure they've done really well for this purple dial as well. But it's just that the original one is so pedestrian that it will fall in the same path as what I'm wearing right now. You will see it drop in the secondary market. People will find it too dull. It will have that effect. I think if they had gone a bit more with the purple, I would have liked it a lot more. But that's me. So I'm giving a grade for this only because I like the purple more than the silver. But at the same time, I'm scoring for both, right? So it's somewhere in between. Back to you, James.
All right. So, before we move on to the next criteria, I think what I would have personally done it, I would have taken a book out from Nomos, right? On how they did with the new World Timer. They have like the sort of like a more boring version of the regular, like a blue and silver model. And then they have the bunch of limited edition playful colors launch in conjunction with that, right? Which I think Grand Seiko, it's probably leaning to that direction as well, that they have more color variant down the line. But I think they lose a little bit of a buzz when they stagger it a little bit too slow, right? I think if they've come out with a bang and says like, hey, maybe not with the crazy amount of limited edition as Nomos did, but I believe these three variants could have launched together at launch day.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I think if they had launched all three, and let's say the first series, right, was a steel, a titanium standard edition, and the platinum, and the steel one also had the micro adjust, I think it would have been a hit, almost immediately. They would have sold out all the violet ones almost quickly, very, very quickly as well. So you're absolutely spot on there.
Great. Right. Moving on to horological features, right? So I'm going to hop on this again, right? In this sort of day and age with horology, it's very hard to come by such innovation at I would say a purchasable price point. I wouldn't say affordable, but purchasable. Nowadays, with all the crazy horological advancement they have, you have the Kudo, you have the Hybris Mechanical. It's all these crazy pieces that you will never be able to afford. But I wouldn't say never, but regular person would probably not consider in their lifetime unless you strike a lottery or something, right? Whereas Grand Seiko have decided to went with the path of creating this, right? To create some buzz, creating say, hey, ultimately our watches is not just a status symbol or just for aesthetic and stuff like that. We are looking into the heart of the watch, right? The movement and what they have did, and we have to give credits where credits due. If not, I would say it's going to be a very bad place in a watch in the coming 10, 20 years where it's just going to be regular, boring, robust movement, and everybody's going to be buying the same pieces again and again, right? So with that being said, this particular engineering or / innovation, it's very impressive. Not only do they get to improve the accuracy of the movement tremendously, they also manage to make it a lot smaller compared to the previous variation, right? And it's what's that? Previously you have the automatic spring drive, and then you have the hand wind spring drive, and then now you have this one which is the automatic and in the smaller size as well, right? It's like you're just pretty looking at the spec sheet. It's like a checkbox in every single way in the spec sheet, and that's super impressive. And that's going to be a full mark for me over here. Yeah, over to you, Woody.
Well, I've always been a fan of the spring drive. It's an amazing piece of innovation. No one's asking for it. That's the beauty of it. The same way, James, you were trying to tell that story, right? Everybody, if you need something very accurate, your laptop or your Apple Watch tells you the time more accurately because it's syncing every now and then for data with the satellite or whatnot and your internet, right? As long as you've got internet. If you've got no internet, good luck to you. It will run for a bit. But when a brand decides to double down on something that's already very accurate. So because even in the past, this was already a 2 second, I think 5 to 10, if I stand corrected, 5 to 10 second a month already back then. It was around that point, 10 to 15 maybe per month. So that is already, if you work out the math, it's half a second a day already. Now they've gone to the level of 20 seconds a year, right? That's 3 seconds a month, right? Your brand anything considered a Patek, an Audemars Piguet, a Vacheron, a Rolex will only ever do, I'll promise you, 2 ± 2 seconds a day. So for them to go and do this, and it's still a mechanical type of watch. So if you flip the watch around, you will still see a rotor, you will still see gears winding. Yes, there is a part of the watch that's using a quartz oscillator to regulate, but by and large, the entire powertrain is generated from potential energy coming from your wrist. So it's no batteries involved, right? So for them to do that, and then I also want to give them credit when this watch first dropped in Watches and Wonders, when they did that and the other long-standing pain of a micro adjust for the bracelet. Those of you who are not familiar with Grand Seiko bracelets are not the best. It's almost annoying that you either have a right fit or you don't. And so the micro adjust is a godsend for so many of us, right? So when they did all of that, there was only one thing to do. You have to give them the best marks that you can. You kind of need companies like this to keep pushing the envelope of watchmaking. Else, we are all going to be relying on Selita movements, Miyota movements, and the next pretty thing. And all the big brands know they can get away with murder already. They just have to use the same movement over and over and over again for the next 10 to 15 years, and you will still buy it, right? So we kind of want this to keep happening. I know those of you out there who still not bought it on Spring Drive, just instead of judging it on paper, just go and see one. See it in motion. That's the only way I can appeal that to you as an enthusiast. Back to you, James.
Mm-hmm. Great. Right. Moving on to the very last criteria, which is wearability, right? So wearability, okay, so let's talk about several things, right? So there is your case size, 37, small up to light. Fantastic, right? No complaints over there. It's a watch that really fits well as well. Even at 37, you would definitely it will not wear super small as well. There is it doesn't come with a thick bezel, not like a dive watch and so on. So it still looks really nice. If you worry that's too small, I don't believe so. Bracelet wise, could it have a nicer taper, a bigger taper? Maybe, but that's also maybe a personal preference thing. And then in terms of the micro adjustment, yes, some has it, some doesn't. But overall, I think just because the case size plays so much points for me in coming from a owner of the SPGA 011, the original Snowflake. This is a massive, massive, massive improvement, and I would just have to give it a full mark over here for me. Yep, over to you, Woody.
Well, I represent the tiny wrist tribe. This is an easy one. When it first came out, I was like, "Oh man, why did this come out?" Right? Because it ticks all the boxes. Proportions are still right. I'm a big supporter and believer of this Evolution 9 case. There's a lot of thought that's gone into it. It's a very Japanese artisanal thing. They put a lot of thought into how it sits on the wrist and whatnot. If you've never tried an Evolution 9 case, didn't quite like, maybe if you haven't tried the bigger one, try it. Maybe it's still too big. Try this one. You will know the difference compared to the other, even Grand Seiko cases, right? So easy one for me here. Fully tiny wrist trap endorsed. Back to you, James.
All right. So I think that's a really, really great way to wrap up this episode. As you can see as well, with this new visual, you have a progress bar on there as well. And on top of it, just to remind you again as well, this is what we would sort of gauge as like buy if the price is right when it falls between those particular scoring, and we will definitely buy it if it goes above. And then at the bottom, like I said, because this is very much ultimately a subjective scoring. So it's like we may not like it, but if you do, just buy it if you really like it, right? So that's how it is. I mean, ultimately, worth the hype. It's meant to for us to share our opinions coming from a regular watch enthusiast point of view. And if you may agree with it, you may not agree with it, but that's the fun of it, right? And then I guess you get you a very quick insight of the entire watch, how it wears, what's the price, is it worth it on this each specific angle as well, to maybe even give you an informed decision before making your purchase, right? Or at least another point of opinion to consider as well, right? But yeah, any last words, Woody?
Grand Seiko, if you're listening, a similar purple dial, fully in titanium, micro adjust, make it a regular production if you have to, you will have me as a customer. I'll leave it on that note.
Fair enough. I think that's a great way to end it. And we'll see you in the next one. Until then, right, bye.